Trauma-plagued rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25. Shakur was shot 4 times after leaving the Mike Tyson boxing match in Las Vegas in a car driven by Marion Suge Knight, the head of his label, Death Row Records.
Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business.
Welcome to Spill Hood, your go-to spot for the wildest gossip and real street news. Tupac's passing has always been hip-hop's biggest mystery, and here in 2025, the whole culture is buzzing again. A hidden grave in Carolina, Diddy's name drifting back into the conversation, and a court case dodging real answers. Everything is cracking open fast. The truth was never buried. It was just waiting to be uncovered. And once it comes out, someone's entire legacy might shake apart in front of everyone. Jeff Pearlman just dropped a shocking biography claiming to reveal Pac's real burial site and the family tension around his estate. Pearlman did what nobody else could. He located what he says is Tupac's actual grave. And the way it happened sounds straight out of a movie.
For almost 30 years, people believed Pac was fully cremated. No grave, just rumors of ashes scattered and the outlaws keeping some. But Pearlman's book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, flips everything. He spent 3 years doing nearly 700 interviews, talking to Pac's sister Akila, stepbrother Mopreme, classmates, people from his movie sets, Panthers, and those who knew him during his time behind bars.
Death Row insiders and even Tupac's high school girlfriend, the one who shared over 100 love letters, all helped shape this book. It doesn't paint Pac as the untouchable street icon people imagine, but as a talented, stressed, emotional artist searching for approval in a world that kept testing him. Reviewers say the book is raw, fearless, and revealing in ways even longtime fans never expected.
And then he said something to me that he goes, do you want to see where Tupac is buried? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because everyone knows Tupac's ashes were spread off the Pacific and Mountain. He's like, oh, yeah, no.
But here's where things really turn wild. Pearlman ended up deep in Lumberton, North Carolina, a small town far from the spotlight, while researching Afeni Shakur's life. That's where he met Tupac's cousin, Dante Powers, the caretaker of Afeni's old property. Powers was heading to the abandoned house Afeni bought back in 2000 and told Pearlman to ride along. Inside the place, all they found were dusty boxes of Afeni's belongings. And then Powers asked the question that flipped Pearlman's entire investigation. Afeni had purchased the massive 56-acre property in 2004, long after Pac passed. She built a huge home behind iron gates, lived there from 2002 to 2016, and even married local preacher Gus Davis before they split in early 2016. After her passing at 69, the property was left untouched, overgrown, and forgotten. No crowds, no memorial, nothing like the tribute spots for Jim Morrison or Jimi Hendrix. Just a quiet, abandoned house in the middle of nowhere, with one of hip-hop's most legendary names reportedly resting in the front yard. Why all the secrecy? Pearlman believes it was simple: respect. The family didn't want Pac's resting place turning into some tourist circus like Graceland or Paisley Park. And because the area was so far out, it stayed quiet for years without anyone noticing a thing. But here's where it gets even more unreal. The rest of Pac's ashes was split up in ways that sound like something straight out of his own verses. Parts were scattered in Los Angeles, Georgia near Afeni's home, in Soweto, and along the Pacific coast. And yes, the outlaws admitted they really did mix a tiny portion of his ashes with marijuana during a memorial, just like Pac once said in his lyric, "Cremated. Last wishes smoked my ashes." Mopreme confirmed it, saying, "I guess we were trying to feel close to him." Pac always talked about it. Suge Knight even backed the story, saying the family passed around a bag with ashes the night Pac passed, though he didn't join in due to probation. But the book doesn't stop at the grave reveal. Pearlman uncovered way more. He tracked down the real-life survivor behind the story that inspired Brenda's Got a Baby, now an adult, and reconnected her with her mother. He also revealed how Pac shadowed well-known figure Bobby Burton for a week, taking notes to prepare for his intense role in Juice. And then there's the infamous poetic justice moment. Janet Jackson requesting a health test before filming intimate scenes, and Tupac refusing, telling people to go ahead and say what you want about it, turning the whole set into a hot topic overnight. The book dives into one of the heaviest burdens Pac carried, the 1992 Marin City incident, where a firearm he was holding accidentally discharged, leading to the tragic passing of a young child. It was something that stayed on his conscience and showed up in his music again and again. Pearlman highlights how deeply Pac struggled with it, not in a sensational way, but in a way that shows the emotional weight he lived with every day. There's also the pain of his father, Billy Garland, not showing up for a prison visit, something Pac described as feeling like his heart was being carved out. Then the book shifts to over 100 love letters he wrote to his high school girlfriend, Mary Baldridge. Letters showing Pac's soft, thoughtful side the public rarely saw. But Perlman doesn't hide the contradictions. He shows how this same gentle soul, the kid who would move ladybugs off the sidewalk, later adopted a harder image, something Death Row's Mob James once called a wannabe, someone trying too hard to fit the role. The book paints Pac's final days at Death Row as a time of stress and chaos, financially strained, emotionally isolated, and trapped in a machine that didn't care about him.
Did you learn anything about his death?
Yeah, I mean, so he died, it's interesting, he died in Vegas, and he was there for the Bruce Seldon-Mike Tyson fight. A very, very bad fight.
Even the car Suje gifted him turned out to be leased. Actress Layla Roshan even turned down his flirting on set, saying, "I don't feel like getting into anything dangerous," trying to keep her distance as tensions around Pac kept escalating. Perlman shows Pac as someone craving connection, so lost in the noise around him that it pushed him into the MGM Grand confrontation with Orlando Anderson, the moment that set off everything that happened next. While Perlman was digging up Pac's history, Pac's family was locked in a whole new battle. In January 2022, Afeni's daughter, Akila Shakur, and the Tupac Shakur Foundation filed a lawsuit against Tom Wally, the former Interscope executive Afeni trusted as the estate's overseer. They accused him of mishandling funds, saying he took more than $5.5 million in excessive payments since 2016, put himself in charge of Amaru Entertainment, creating a major conflict of interest, and even held on to personal items Akila was supposed to inherit, including cars and memorabilia. The estate drama got even deeper when Akila claimed that jewelry worth over $217,700, plus gold records, vintage clothes, and even Pac's old pinball machines were used in the Tupac Shakur Wake Me When I'm Free exhibit without her permission. She said personal family items were being put on display like museum props, and she wasn't having it. Wally clapped back fast, saying he boosted the estate's value by tens of millions through that same exhibit, something he insisted was Afeni's original idea. He said the trust gave him full control, and he called the accusations disappointing and harmful to Pac's legacy. The judge ordered a full financial breakdown by June 30th, 2022. But when Akila got the documents, she said it was way too vague. Broad categories, no real details. She demanded a full independent CPA audit, accusing Wally of playing a hide and control game with Pac's legacy. But the family's attention wasn't only on the financial battles. It was also on Keefe D's long list of claims over the years. In his federal proffer from 2008 to 2009, his 2018 docs, his 2019 memoir Compton Street Legend, and countless interviews, Keefe D kept pushing the same story, that Diddy supposedly offered $1 million after the Quad Studios situation, allegedly through associate Eric Zip Martin, saying he'd give anything for those dudes' heads or millions.
He's like, yeah, come on. And in the front, it's in the book actually, the pictures, in the front yard, in an abandoned lot in Lumberton, North Carolina, is Tupac Shakur's headstone, like right there. And I'm standing over it. And I would say like the full circle moment for a guy writing a book is standing over the headstone that no one even knows exists of the person you're writing about. And that was like a chills moment for me, being there with Tupac's grave. And the whole book is just a journey of wild and crazy and fun and interesting.
Diddy's name showed up 77 times in 2024 court filings and 47 times in a 2025 DEA transcript, keeping the controversy alive in every direction. He has denied every single accusation since 2008, calling all claims ridiculous and completely false. The Las Vegas Metro Police have repeatedly said Diddy was never a suspect, but Mopreme Shakur told the media the family still wants answers. He said they're asking new direct questions, and if Attorney Spiro's investigation uncovers anything solid, they're ready to move forward with criminal charges or even a wrongful death lawsuit. Right now, everything is happening behind closed doors with no public updates, but the pressure is real. And the fact that Tupac's family hired one of the top attorneys in the country says everything about how seriously they're treating Keefe D's statements. But even with all these revelations about Pac's final days and where he was actually laid to rest, this is just the warm-up for the bigger street legends and legal twists that have kept this case alive for 30 years. Conspiracy theories, Keefe D's arrest, and the constant whispers that Pac might still be out there, this case has never gone cold in the streets or in the courts. Now let's get into the biggest theory of them all, the one people still argue about every single year. The idea that Tupac didn't pass away in Vegas, but escaped to Cuba to live with his aunt Assata Shakur, who's been in asylum there since 1984. This is the conspiracy that refuses to die. According to the story, Fidel Castro himself helped Pac disappear using either a helicopter switch, a body double, or connections tied to the Nation of Islam. Over the years, people claimed to spot him everywhere. A 2016 picture with Rihanna that was exposed as Photoshop, a Somali man saying he saw Pac in a car in 2018, and locals in small Cuban towns reporting random sightings the same year. Filmmaker Michael Nice once claimed he had audio and video of Fidel Castro approving Pac's escape, adding more fuel to one of the most famous theories ever. Then Suge Knight's son jumped online in 2018 and 2019, posting that Tupac was alive in Malaysia, even posing with Beyonce and 50 Cent, though he later admitted it was just promotional content. Other supposed hiding spots kept popping up too. After a 2011 PBS hack, some people claim Pac was in New Zealand. Private investigator Jimmy Poole shared photos in 2020 that he said suggested New Mexico on a Navajo reservation. In Rick Boss's documentary Tupac, The Great Escape from UMC, the theory shifts to East Africa, saying Pac left with Yaki Gaddafi. And then you've got the versions involving government protection, secret organizations, or a last-minute swap with a body double. By 2025, social media was joking that Pac was alive in Brazil in some furry costume or chilling in a luxurious mansion in Kenya. Then comes the whole Machiavelli angle, which conspiracy fans treat like their holy grail. Pac's final album, The Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, was released under the alias Machiavelli, a name inspired by Niccolo Machiavelli, who some people believe once faked his own passing to outsmart enemies. The album was recorded in 7 days and dropped 7 weeks after Pac's passing. The cover shows him posed like Jesus, who rose after 3 days. But theorists twisted it into another 7 clue. Posthumous songs added even more fuel to the rumors. Tracks like God Bless the Dead, released in 1998, mentioned Biggie, even though Biggie didn't pass until March 1997. That made people swear Pac must have recorded it after his own reported passing, turning the whole thing into a hidden message for conspiracy fans. Lines like, "Expect me like you expect Jesus to come back," were treated like coded clues. Then came the autopsy rumors. Leaked photos showed details that didn't match. The body measured 6 feet instead of Pac's 5'10", weighed around 215 pounds instead of his usual 168, and didn't appear to have the Machiavelli tattoo on the neck. Some people said the photo came from the California Love video or movie makeup, not an actual autopsy. Since there was no public body viewing, the theories kept multiplying. The Outlaws once said they smoked a tiny portion of Pac's ashes at a memorial, but later even they questioned whether what they were handed was real. That made conspiracy circles go wild. People claim Pac's social security number stayed active after his passing and pointed to how fast the cremation happened the very next day, while saying the cremator allegedly disappeared afterward. Suge Knight pushed the mystery even further over the years. In 2017, he said, "With Pac, you never know." And in 2025, he claimed Pac once asked Afeni to let him step away from the spotlight to avoid legal trouble. The Outlaws originally backed the lyric "Cremated last wishes, smoke my ashes," but later said they weren't sure if the ashes were authentic. Even Afeni's comment that Pac wanted to leave quietly got twisted by conspiracy fans into so-called proof that he might have slipped away instead of passing publicly.
Interviewed like some family members, just distant family members who happen to live in Lumberton, and one guy goes, "Hey, do you want to tour the house? I'm the caretaker." And I'm like, "Oh." So I just ripped my pants on a fence for absolutely nothing. You could just take it. I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't even tell my wife." He's like, "Yeah." He drives me there. I'm literally inside Afeni Shakur's house with the caretaker. She's died in 2016, so all her boxes are packed up. Here are her books, here are stuff. And then he said something to me that he goes, "Do you want to see where Tupac is buried?" And I'm like, "I don't, what do you mean?" Because everyone knows Tupac's ashes were spread off the Pacific and Malibu. He's like, "Oh, yeah, no. He has a grave here on the property." I'm like, I didn't let on. But in my head, I'm like, wait, what?
People twist Afeni's comment into he chose to disappear. But here's the truth. Every single one of these theories has already been shut down. Machiavelli didn't fake his passing. He died in 1527 from an illness. The whole myth came from fans misreading his political ideas. And all that numerology stuff, straight cherry picking. If you want numbers to match, you can force anything to fit. The leaked autopsy photo, the one that triggered an internal LVPD review, turned out to be real. The so-called discrepancies were explained by post-passing swelling, which changes height and weight. Tattoos can fade, get covered by medical procedures, or be masked by blood. And the 2023 grand jury saw multiple verified autopsy photos, including the confirmed injury sites. The fast cremation wasn't shady either. It was a Afeni honoring Pac's own wishes, something he even talked about in his music. The family kept things private to avoid turning his farewell into a circus. And now, thanks to Jeff Pearlman's book, we know part of Pac's ashes were placed in Lumberton, North Carolina. Physical proof that Tupac has been gone since September 13th, 1996. So why do these theories keep bouncing around even with all the evidence? There are 4 big reasons. First, massive distrust of institutions. This case sat without a clear answer for 27 years before 2023. Combine that with the East Coast versus West Coast tension, gang affiliations, and long-running claims of police corruption, especially considering how the FBI treated the Panthers and people naturally questioned everything. When officials can't close a major case surrounding a cultural icon, the streets start creating their own explanations. For almost 30 years, people filled the silence with their own versions of the story because nobody had real answers. And honestly, Tupac helped build that mystery himself. His music, the Machiavelli persona, the deep lyrics, the surprise releases, all of it kept his legend growing long after he was gone. He dropped 7 platinum albums after passing, compared to 4 while alive, which kept the mystique burning strong. Death Row Records and Suge Knight made huge money off that mystery too, so they had no reason to pass the speculation. Every new rumor meant more attention, more streams, more albums moving. The business side was winning every time a new theory popped up. But while fans argued about Cuba, body doubles, and Machiavelli, real investigators were building an actual case behind the scenes. On September 29, 2023, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a 60-year-old former Southside Compton Crips figure and Orlando Anderson's uncle, was taken into custody during a morning walk in a SWAT-style takedown caught on body cam. He was charged with using a weapon in a retaliatory attack, with added gang-related enhancements, accused of being the one who gave the green light that night. And here's the wildest part. Keefe D basically handed investigators the evidence himself. Back in 2008 to 2009, Keefe D sat down with an LAPD FBI task force under a limited immunity agreement and laid out his whole version of the Vegas incident. He said he was in the front seat of the white Cadillac, got hold of a .40 caliber firearm and handed it to the back seat, where his nephew Orlando was likely the one who fired back. He even claimed Diddy offered $1 million for retaliation, a claim Diddy has always denied.
Believe Keefe D when it comes to Puffy, like when he made comments and say that, you know, Puffy was scared of Tupac and Suge, so he would use him as protection when he came to LA, and how Puffy put a bounty on the death row chain for $1 million.
Then in 2018, Keefe showed up in documentaries like Death Row Chronicles and Unsolved, explaining how the retaliation unfolded. In 2019, he co-wrote Compton Street Legend, writing, "One of my guys in the backseat grabbed the Glock and started firing back, and Tupac chose the wrong team." He kept doing interviews with Vlad TV, Art of Dialogue, and others, openly talking about being there, hinting at details, and putting himself at the center of the story. But here's where everything collapses into chaos. Keefe D switched up his whole story after getting arrested. In a jailhouse interview with ABC News, he suddenly claimed the admissions were false and only made for entertainment and money. He said he never even read his own book, insisting co-author Yusef Jad did his own investigation and added dramatic details for sales. To his defense team, he argued that parts of his statements were created to protect people he used to hustle with, and that he believed his immunity covered everything across the whole state.
Yeah, that's why it goes down to the chain snatching. When the people were saying, you know, when the people first tried to snatch the chain, rumor back then that it was a bounty on that chain. That Puffy was saying, we want to put this chain in a, you know, in our video, and that's why the guys try to snatch the chain, and they didn't get the chain, and that's why Pac really took off and just started, you know what I mean, and fighting Orlando, because Pac looked at it like, this is my beef now.
In bail hearings, he insisted the confessions were just entertainment, not real evidence, even though he repeated the same claims for more than a decade. Keefe D even claimed, "They can't put me in Las Vegas," saying he was 300 miles away in LA with 20 to 30 people who could vouch for him. But the story didn't hold. His own son publicly called him a liar and a fibber. Former detective Greg Cadden, who questioned him in the 2000s, said Keefe was reckless for bragging after getting a proffer deal. Keefe later accused Cadden of using tainted evidence and demanded to know, "If I was so dangerous, why wait 27 years to charge me?" But the problem is, he changed his story so many times, chasing book money, interview checks, and then scrambling once he got arrested, that prosecutors told the judge every statement should be allowed in court because he violated his original immunity by going public. In January 2025, his lawyer tried to get the case dismissed, claiming the prosecution violated his rights and that key evidence and witnesses were gone. But things only got worse. In April 2025, Keith was found guilty in a separate jail altercation and was sentenced in September 2025 to 16 to 40 months, served at the same time as his other charges. Meanwhile, Suge Knight has been speaking from behind bars, where he's serving time for a separate manslaughter conviction. He said he was shocked Keith was arrested, claimed he 1,000% would not testify, and hinted he knows who really fired that night, but wouldn't reveal it, suggesting the wrong person was targeted and that it wasn't Orlando Anderson. Tupac's family said they were relieved to see movement in the case, but frustrated by constant delays. That frustration is what pushed them to hire powerhouse attorney Alex Spiro to dig into the alleged Diddy connection separately from the criminal investigation. As of November 10th, 2025, that private probe is still active. The trial is officially set for February 9th, 2026, and so far, there are no delays on the calendar. Keith D is pleading not guilty, while prosecutors are fighting to bring in all his statements, the proffer details, the book quotes, and every interview he ever did. Former detectives like Greg Kading say a conviction would finally close the case in a historical sense. But until that verdict comes down, it remains technically unsolved. But to understand how this all exploded, why the attack even happened, and why it took almost 3 decades to bring charges, you have to rewind to the rivalry that created the spark. The East Coast versus West Coast tension, and how Tupac's friendship with Biggie twisted into one of the darkest feuds hip-hop has ever seen. The public version of the story says Tupac was taken out in a gang retaliation move after he and members tied to death row confronted Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand. Hours later, the Southside Compton Crips allegedly pulled up in a white Cadillac and opened fire on Suge Knight's BMW at a Vegas traffic light. But that's only the surface. The deeper truth is that Tupac's passing marked the final explosion of a 2-year battle between East Coast and West Coast music scenes, a conflict that spiraled far past studio competition. Pac and Biggie's broken friendship turned into a cultural battlefield, mixing real street ties, million-dollar offers, and aggressive diss records that pushed everything to a dangerous edge. And that the East Coast-West Coast tension was already brewing long before Tupac and Biggie, but they became the faces of it, and eventually its biggest losses. Hip-hop started in the Bronx in the 1970s, creating a strong East Coast identity. By the late 80s, the West Coast hit back hard when NWA dropped straight out of Compton in 1988, putting G-Funk, California street life, and Compton's reality front and center. The first major spark came in 1991 when Bronx rapper Tim Dog released Diss Compton, taking aim at NWA. Dr. Dre fired back on The Chronic in 1992, calling out Tim Dog and Eazy-E. But the business side is what made things dangerous. Suge Knight launched Death Row Records in 1991, signing Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, with real connections to the Mob Piru Bloods through Suge's own background. On the other side, Sean Puff Daddy Combs built Bad Boy Records in 1993, introducing Biggie and Craig Mack while hiring Southside Crips for security. West Coast artists felt ignored by East Coast media at the time. Radio stations like Power 106 pushed slogans like "Where Hip Hop Lives," which many West Coast artists saw as claiming ownership of the entire culture. With Bloods and Crips tied to different labels, the tension wasn't just about music. It was real street alliances mixed with million-dollar business. What makes Tupac and Biggie's story even more heartbreaking is how it started, as a real friendship. Both were New York born, Pac in Harlem in 1971, Biggie in Brooklyn in 1972. They linked up in spring 1993, before the drama consumed everything. Pac was already a rising star with albums like Tupacalypse Now and film roles in Juice, while Biggie was still the hungry newcomer trying to make his mark. Tupac looked out for Biggie in the early days. He brought Big to his LA home, showed him studio tricks, let him crash on the couch, and even gave him career game. At one point, Biggie wanted Pac to manage him, but Pac told him, stay with Puff. He's gonna make you a star. In August 1993, Pac even handed Biggie a bottle of Hennessy at a Maryland show. Big later admitted Pac was a real friend. But everything flipped on November 30th, 1994, inside Quad Studios in Manhattan. Pac showed up to record with Lil Sean and ran into Junior MAFIA in the lobby. Moments later, 3 armed men robbed him and fired multiple shots, injuring him in several places. As Pac was being taken out on a stretcher, he looked up and saw Biggie, Puff Daddy, and Lil Cease upstairs watching calmly.
I looked at him and I said, "Who shot you?" And he looked at me and he was trying to get his breath together, and I thought I was gonna actually get some cooperation. So he looked back at me and he said, "F you." And after he said that, his eyes kind of rolled back He started to gurgle, and he lost consciousness.
And in Pac's mind, that cold reaction felt like betrayal. The very next day, December 1st, 1994, Pac was convicted on a separate legal case and sentenced while still wrapped in bandages, which pushed his anger even further. Then, in February 1995, Biggie dropped Who Shot Ya? The track had been recorded before the quad attack, but lyrics like Who Shot Ya? Separate the weak from the obsolete sounded like disrespect to Pac. Biggie denied it had anything to do with him, saying he wrote it months earlier, but Pac wasn't convinced. In an April 1995 Vibe interview from prison, he claimed Biggie and his crew didn't care about him getting hurt, saying it felt like they were happy about it. Then came the 1995 Source Awards on August 3rd, the moment the rivalry blew wide open. Suge Knight stepped on stage and fired a direct shot at Puff Daddy, sending the tension between both coasts to a whole new level. Suge Knight walked on stage at the Source Awards and sent a shot straight at Bad Boy, saying, "Any artist out there who wants to be an artist, come to Death Row." The crowd exploded, and when Death Row won, they got booed heavy. Snoop Dogg fired back, saying the East Coast showed no love, turning the whole room into tension you could feel through the TV. 2 months later, in October 1995, Suge posted a $1.4 million bond to free Tupac and immediately signed him to a 3-album Death Row deal. Pac hit the studio the same night, recording Ambitions as a Rida, and he made it clear he was ready for a full-blown battle with Bad Boy. The diss tracks came non-stop. In November 1995, Thigh Dog Pound dropped the New York, New York video where Snoop and Kurupt kicked down NYC skyscraper props. During filming in Brooklyn, shots were fired at their trailer, turning the video shoot into chaos. By December 1995, Capone and Noriega, Mobb Deep, and Tragedy Gaddafi clapped back with LA, LA, calling West Coast artists soft like a Laker game. Pac answered even louder. In March 1996, he dropped All Eyes on Me with hits like California Love and 2 of America's Most Wanted with Snoop. But the track that changed everything came on June 4th, 1996, Hit 'Em Up. Pac opened the track with a personal attack aimed at Biggie's marriage, then warned Bad Boy that things were about to get serious. He taunted, "Who shot me? But you didn't finish," turning his anger into one of the most aggressive diss records ever. The video featured actors dressed like Puff and Biggie being embarrassed on screen. Biggie was reportedly emotional after hearing it and wanted peace, refusing to respond directly. He may have answered with subliminals on Long Kiss Goodnight in 1997, but it dropped only after both men had already passed. This rivalry created the perfect storm: corporate power, street ties, and real neighborhood alliances blending into one explosive situation. It wasn't just music beef anymore. It was an environment where things could go way too far, way too fast. Death Row was tied to Mob Peru Bloods, while Bad Boy brought in Southside Crips for security, including people connected to Orlando Anderson's uncle, Keith D. In LA's street world, taking someone's Death Row medallion was seen as a serious violation, and when Orlando Anderson was accused of grabbing one, it lit the fuse for everything that came next. At the MGM Grand, Tupac confronted Orlando on camera, rocking all red and openly calling out Bad Boy and the Crips. That moment wasn't just about a stolen chain. It symbolized the bigger clash between Death Row Bloods and Bad Boy Crips, and everyone involved knew it. For years, Keith D has claimed Puff Daddy supposedly offered $1 million for Pac to be harmed, a claim he says came through Crips associate Eric Zip Martin. Whether that's real or just Keith selling stories, the atmosphere back then was already heated enough that the MGM fight guaranteed retaliation. So when the Cadillac pulled up later that night, it wasn't only about Orlando getting jumped, it was the whole East-West tension exploding in one drive-by. 6 months later, on March 9th, 1997, Biggie was also taken out in Los Angeles in a similar hit that still remains officially unsolved. Many people believe it may have been retaliation tied to Bloods, though nothing has ever been proven. By 1997 to 1998, Minister Farrakhan hosted peace summits, and Snoop and Puff even stood together on the Steve Harvey Show trying to close the chapter. Over time, the rivalry faded as hip-hop moved into more cross-coast collaboration. But the impact of that era is locked into the culture forever. And the feud didn't pull the trigger on September 7th, 1996. The Southside Crips were responsible for that night. But the rivalry set the stage, lit the fuse, and created a world where one heated casino clash between artists tied to Bloods and people tied to Crips could take away one of the greatest voices hip-hop ever had. And that's why even today, with Keith D locked up waiting for his 2026 trial, with Jeff Pearlman exposing Pac's hidden grave, and with so many facts finally public, the streets still argue about what really went down. The truth hits hard. Tupac Shakur lost his life to the same street politics and industry tension he warned about in his music for years. The mystery solved headlines from 2025, Don't erase nearly 3 decades of pain, rumors, unresolved chaos, and a case that won't truly close until the verdict is read in court. We've reached the end of the clip. Thank you for watching, fam. Stay locked in, smash that like, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and share this video to keep the conversation going. And I'll see you in the next one.